So the bottom of this conference, I think, has solidified. I had a much bigger group at the bottom for the last couple power rankings, but I think these four have separated, might not be, well, separated in a negative way from the rest of the pack. Florida State, a blowout loss to Notre Dame. They've been bouncing between 16 and 17 for a little while now. I've got them back at the very bottom. They've lost 6 in a row. All 6 of those, or the last 3 by 20 or more. And now they fired their offensive coordinator, Alex Atkins. They fired the defensive coordinator, Adam Fuller. They just fired their wide receivers coach, Ron Duggins as well. So 3 firings midseason. It's just a It's just a crazy situation to go from an undefeated regular season and ACC championship to this. It's going to be, they might have one of the most interesting off seasons of any team with the wild swing they had. How much do they get back? This is already guaranteed to be their worse than any year under the Bobby Bowden era, or since the start of the Bobby Bowden era in the 60s and the 70s. So just a crazy year for them. I mean, at a certain point, you take it with a grain of salt because the season's over. So what's it matter even if you upset Notre Dame? I don't know how much it matters because all your goals are out the window. But nonetheless, you almost just want to see some pride, some fight. So they make some changes there. Stanford, Stanford had the week off, sorry. NC State loses to North Carolina, and Wake Forest. Interesting, Wake Forest plays or hosts Cal, and they allow Cal to earn their first win in the ACC as a conference member. So not super great for them. At one point in the first half, Wake was starting to fall a little bit behind. Seemed like they were in trouble. They decided to go for it on 4th down. And it seemed like they would do some sort of short running play. It was 4th and short. They go into the Wildcat, and then they tossed it to Hank Bachmeier, their quarterback, who throws a long touchdown pass. Suddenly they're right back in the game. They've got the momentum. But Cal just kept scoring, and Wake just couldn't keep up. So just really, really unimpressive. It'll be interesting to see what Wake Forest can do in this new era. This is the second year in a row where they've been pretty bad. But we don't need to spend any more time on the bottom because now we've got this maybe it's like the lower middle class here. I don't think these teams are bad per se, but they're certainly not good. Boston College earned a strong win. They beat Syracuse. And what's interesting about Boston College is they actually, in my head, everyone watched that Florida State game in week 1, and they ran all over them. And that's what they did to Syracuse. They just ran the ball mercilessly, and Syracuse couldn't stop them. Syracuse had 39 rushing yards, and Boston College had 313. But they're not. It's not that Boston College is a great rushing team. It's that if you don't stop them with Robichaux, they'll just keep going to it until you stop them. And Syracuse never could. Cal, we already talked about it. Their offense was awesome in Winston-Salem, earned their first ACC win. Fernando Mendoza, their quarterback, was 40 for 56, 385 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. 46-36 wins. That's a big one for them. One of the biggest upsets, I'd say the second biggest upset in the ACC this week, was Virginia earning a huge road win at Pitt. Pretty happy for Tony Elliott. Big potentially huge for that program. They now need one more to get to bowl eligibility, which I think that would make for a very successful and overachieving season. It's going to be hard because they still have Notre Dame, SMU, and Virginia Tech left. I don't know that they'll be favored in any of those, especially with Virginia Tech being in Lane Stadium. But to go take care of business, really shut down the Pitt offense, very impressive. Quarterback Anthony Calandria was good-ish. He had 2 picks, but he made enough plays that the Virginia defense was able to carry the day. In fairness, Eli Holstein, the quarterback for Pitt, was knocked out. So that needs to be said, but he wasn't doing a ton either. A lot of kudos to that Virginia defense. It's funny that Tony Elliott, a former offensive coordinator who Clemson fans felt wasn't good at developing the offense, is at Virginia, and their offense isn't that good. Their defense is good. So it's a little irony there. UNC had the open date, and they will host Wake Forest. And you would think they could beat Wake Forest, get their third win in a row because they beat Virginia and Florida State before their open date. So some good momentum for them. Syracuse, as I mentioned, lost. They beat Virginia Tech, but now they lost to Boston College. So they dropped from 6 to 9. And then Virginia Tech loses to Clemson. We'll talk about Clemson in kind of a separate section later. So let's go ahead and dive into that game now. So the Hokies had a 7-0 lead, or we'll talk about the Clemson perspective later. So let's talk about the Virginia Tech perspective now. Sorry, that's what I'm going to say. So the Hokies, they had that 7-0 lead, right? Neither offense was doing anything, but Clemson was at least moving the ball a little bit. They set up for a field goal. Not only does it get blocked, which is a whole nother story, but it gets returned for a touchdown. They're down 7-0. Clemson's offense does nothing the rest of the half, and it's 7-0 at halftime. And Virginia Tech, you got to be feeling okay. You're shutting down Clemson's offense. Your defense isn't doing anything, but at least you have a lead. I mean, your offense isn't doing anything, but at least you have a lead. And then in the second half, Clemson comes out and starts scoring, and Virginia Tech has no answers. They eventually benched Kyron Drones, put in a back quarterback. He did a little, but still not much. And Virginia Tech's offense just isn't very good. They'll probably get to bowl eligibility, probably pick up a win here before the year closes, but I don't think that's a lock. Brent Pry, they won 7 games last year. They'll be lucky to get to 7 this year, looking more like 6. I don't think they'll fire him now, but next year he's going to be on a really, really hot seat. 3, 7, and then 6 or 7 wins. Maybe the bowl game will probably get to 7 by the end of it. You gotta get more. You gotta start seeing progress, right? 3 to 7 is good, but if you get stuck at 7, that's very, very much not good. So then this next tier, so Pitt, as I mentioned, they had the upset loss at home to Virginia, and that's back-to-back now. They go to SMU, get blown out, then lose close at home. And another caveat to their loss, and this is why I didn't punish them overly harshly. At one point they got a 4th down stop, and they get the ball. They have a chance to go down and take a lead with a field goal. They're only down 2, but there's a whistle, and the referee says that the referees were not ready, and so they're going to replay the down because the referees weren't ready and Virginia went too fast. So Pitt did nothing wrong. Virginia snapped it, and the referee says was too fast, and they penalize, and Pitt stuffs them. And so then they penalize Pitt for it. They don't give them a penalty, but they hurt Pitt for it. And then Virginia, after getting stuffed on a run up the middle, adjusts. They sort of fake it up the middle, go on the outside, get it. They don't get a touchdown, but they burn 3 minutes of clock. And then they kick a field goal. So instead of having the ball down 2 with 5 minutes to go, Pitt is down 5 points with only 2 minutes to go, right? So now they've got a 2-minute offense, and they need a touchdown, and they throw a pick pretty much right away. So not to say they would have won, but it was looking 50-50 or maybe even 40-60 out of their favor. But that is a brutal way for that game to end. So I don't penalize them too much for that. Duke was 0 for 9 on 3rd downs, but still outgained and outscored NC State. I think NC State's not good. And Georgia Tech is a big riser. They were 9. Now they jump all the way to 5. Haynes King, their quarterback, was not healthy. He hardly passed it at all. They were 11 for 16 passing on the entire game. And they brought in another quarterback for obvious passing situations. Some sort of upper body injury, I imagine, for Haynes King precluded him from passing too much. But they used him like a triple option quarterback. It wasn't really an option. It was more, it wasn't a triple option. It was like, tosses and fake tosses, and then he'd run it, or jet sweeps, and then he'd fake the jet sweep, and he'd run it up the middle. He had 96 rushing yards, and it was just a really gutsy performance by him. I was really impressed. They ran the ball 48 times. Miami knew it was coming. They still averaged 5.6 yards to carry. Miami's defense is not that tough. They got out physical. And just a really great program win for Brent Pry, Brent Key and the guys at Georgia Tech. Just an awesome win, and kudos to them. Kudos to Georgia Tech. Let me pause here and see. No comments. All right, let's keep rolling along. So then these next two, we've got Clemson, we've got Louisville. I'm going to save most of the Clemson discussion for a separate video or a continuation of the live video if you're watching live. But Clemson obviously started really bad. They've got to fix the special teams. The offense came on late. They'll get a little bit tougher test, I think. I think Pitt, at least according to our rankings, is a little bit higher. than Virginia Tech. So they'll go on the road to Pitt next week, and that'll be their last ACC game before the Citadel, and then what'll be a very tough game against South Carolina, who took care of business against a pretty solid Vanderbilt squad. And then Louisville had the week off. Got to keep Louisville where they are. Not going to drop them right after they beat Clemson. Not going to drop them below Clemson because Clemson picked up a different win. And then our top two here. I'm tempted to move Miami down, but I had SMU Miami 1-2 last week, and I took a lot of flack for that. People said it's totally crazy. Miami is undefeated. You got to have them one. Well, these are power rankings, and so I do sort of use a little bit of discretion, and I do like to, record matters for sure. I try to keep it, not crazy based on my opinion, but the power rankings is how good I think these teams are, and I think Miami has not looked as good as SMU. Think their passing offense is unbelievable. It's elite. But everything else, SMU seems like the better team. And now they finally sort of get that that vindication. My rings from last week, everyone giving me a hard time, sort of get that vindication as Miami loses. SMU had the week off, so they remain one. Should Miami have dropped further? I don't think so because, Clemson has an ACC loss and a non-conference loss. So they have 2 losses. Louisville has 3 losses. Georgia Tech has several. So how far are you going to really drop Miami? I don't think you could really put them all the way down below Georgia Tech. You're not going to put them below Louisville, who they beat. So I think the 1-2 are pretty clear. And we'll see if Miami loses. Miami only has Wake and Syracuse left. They're not going to lose to Wake. So Clemson needs Miami to lose to Syracuse, which would be kind of a miracle. But if it happens, that suddenly puts Clemson in the ACC championship game. Long shot for sure. It looks like SMU Miami will be the very strange ACC championship. So let me know in the comments what you think. Did I get it right this time? Was I proven right about SMU? How high would you have Pitt after back-to-back losses? Maybe makes them look fraudulent. They are 9-point home underdogs in the early line against Clemson.